The big one here, we're going to look at the dollar per gigabyte per month. And so what you see here is these costs are actually all really close together. They're all just about 2 cents, 2 to at most 2.6 cents per gig. So these costs are really, I mean, you can say that, 0.6 cents a gig is a big difference, but percentage-wise, these are all really close together. The retrieval, there's no retrieval fees here. There is something called an egress fee. Now, an egress fee only applies when you pull the data all the way out of Amazon or Google to somewhere else. Now, if you move the data within Amazon, such as or within Google, such as you run a VM and you access that storage from within the VM within the Google or Amazon world, the egress fees don't apply there. It's only when you move it to somewhere really different, such as moving it back to your data center, such as a large restore of data back to your data center, or in some cases, if you decide that you want your data to no longer be in the United States and you want it to be in China, for example, and you want to move it from the Amazon or Google resources in the United States and then move it over to China, sometimes there's an egress fee there. But this egress fee, you'll see, is around as low as 5 cents a gigabyte, as high as 12 cents a gigabyte. This is where Amazon didn't look as good. I do want to say that Amazon just dropped their pricing like, was it, George, was like a week ago?
It was a week ago, exactly.
Yeah, a week ago. It was their big show, and this is one of the things. And Google hasn't really had a chance to respond. So these columns will change at some point in the near future. I'm guessing Google will respond to these pricing changes. But this is what I'm talking about. Even the egress fee, which is the toughest fee, this is going back to the question. You're paying 2.5 cents a gigabyte per month. You only pay, like, look at S3. You're paying 2 to 2.3 cents per gigabyte per month, and you only pay 5 cents to retrieve it. So that's what I was saying was I wouldn't be worried too much about the retrieval or egress charges because that's something you only pay once. And again, this webinar is talking about cold storage, not day-to-day moving data back and forth. So theoretically, you shouldn't be doing a lot of egressing, assuming you're like a normal data center, okay? And then there is this thing down there about the number of operations. I really have no idea how many operations a typical product would use, but those also have a cost. And in this case, they're exactly the same between Amazon and Google. Now let's talk where, again, more interesting. Now the idea here is that with these offerings, they lower the monthly cost, but then they make it more expensive to take it out. Okay, and in the case because now you still have the egress charges that you had before. You'll notice they're actually the same. The egress charges are still there, but in addition to the egress charges, you also have a retrieval fee because you're now paying only a penny a gigabyte a month, or in the case of Glacier or Coldline, you're paying 0.4 cents a gigabyte or 0.7 cents a gigabyte per month. So you're paying less than a penny a gigabyte a month, and that way. And now look at the Amazon Glacier retrieval fees column. This is the one you talk about complicated. The idea is you get 5%. You can have 5% of your data every month for free. 5% is defined as 5% of your total storage divided by the number of days in the month per day. So that's a little complicated, right? So if you've got, let's say your 5% comes out to 30 terabytes, you're allowed to do 1 terabyte a day for free, right? So let's say, I don't know what would that be, like 150, 1,500 terabytes, like 1,500 terabytes. If you had 1,500 terabytes, 5% would be 30 terabytes. 1 day of that would be 1 terabyte. So you're allowed to do 1 terabyte a day for free. But after that, you pay these other fees, and it's either 1, 2, or 3 cents per gigabyte based on whether or not you're okay with waiting 5 to 12 hours, 3 to 5 hours, or 1 to 5 minutes. and that's a decision that you'll make at the time of retrieval. Whereas Google Cold Line is just a straight 5 cents per gigabyte. Now, notice that is significantly more expensive. It depends on how many gigabytes, how many terabytes we're talking about, but that's basically twice what Amazon is charging per. You can say, yeah, well, there's a simple, but it's more expensive. Again, remember, the Amazon prices just recently got reduced. And then the egress fees stays the same, and I think that's about it. I'd say the biggest one here. I said all that cool stuff about Google in the beginning. I do think right here when we start to put petabytes of data up there, the difference between 0.4 cents a gigabyte a month and 0.7 cents a gigabyte a month becomes significant, right? And the same thing if we have to retrieve that data. And I do just want to make one comment here before I ask George your comment on these slides, is that if you're using cold storage the way you're supposed to be using cold storage, you shouldn't be doing a lot of retrievals. You should be doing few. There should be few and far between. And so, and typically when you do retrievals, you're not going to do retrievals of the entire data set. You're only going to do retrievals of a small part of the data set. So, George, your thoughts on the pricing here?
That's a really good point. If you're using it as a long-term archive that I hope to never touch, but might have to occasionally, the Glacier pricing is more attractive. What the Cold Line from Google does is it lets you start thinking about it for very infrequently accessed data. What if it's a report that I need to get at annually, or, something that I know I need to get at, but I don't need to get at it very often. And so it creates a new use case. And now we can start looking at these and trying to understand what I want to store, how I'm going to access it, and now, make the best choice based on my data.